like to call this meeting to order, and we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. I'd like to have roll call. We'll start with the existing board members first. Commissioner Holman.
Here.
Commissioner Gutza.
Here.
Commissioner Swenson.
Present.
Commissioner Kantorowicz.
Here.
Commissioner Evans.
Here.
And Commissioner Talcott's here. Just let the minutes reflect that. And the next order of business is to swear in our new commissioner. So,
Dan, you want to go ahead and come over up to the microphone right here, sorry, on the table.
oh,
Yeah, this way. There you go. You want to go in or not?
Oh, I guess so.
You can have him just read that too. You don't have to say it first.
What?
He can just read it.
Oh, you can read it? There you go.
Is that a
Can you get to sign
requirement to
it?
be on the board?
It is, to make it official, yeah. To speak into the microphone. No, you're okay.
Am I close enough?
Yeah.
I, Dan Rooney, do solemnly swear and affirm that I will support, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States and Constitution of the State of Montana, and that I will discharge the duties of my office of Commissioner in and for the Great Falls International Airport Authority of Great Falls, Montana, with fidelity.
All right, welcome. Sign that.
Thank
New
you.
commissioners.
I'll sign it.
Thank you. I will too. All right, so minutes reflect, now we have one more commissioner in attendance. Okay, next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. The consent agenda is made up of routine day-to-day items that require board action, but do not appear to have a significant public impact. Items may be pulled from the consent agenda for separate discussion, to vote by any board member. Consent agenda consists of the approval of the board meeting minutes from February 25th meeting, payroll checks totaling $77,736, maintenance and operation checks totaling $491,188.07. Approved the passenger facility charge totaling $8,000 and the financial reports for February. Without objection, the consent agenda is, if there is no objection.
Mr. Talcott, I would like to pull the maintenance and operation checks from the consent agenda.
Okay. So the consent agenda will be all the previously listed items, but the maintenance and operation checks totaling $491,000 and some change. Without objection, that agenda, or those list of items less the maintenance and operation checks is hereby approved.
Okay.
So
No, I
next,
think we need a vote on it.
we need to vote on it? Okay, all those in favor?
We actually need a motion first. I move that we accept the consent agenda minus the maintenance and operation checks.
Is there a second?
I second.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Nobody opposed, the motion passes. So then we have the maintenance and operation checks. And is there a motion to approve of those?
Can we hear what your objection is first?
Why don't we, should we get a
Yeah.
motion first before discussion?
Generally, there'd be a motion and
Yeah,
a
let's-
discussion.
Yeah. Is there a motion to approve the maintenance and operation checks?
I'll make the motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion?
Yes. At the end of the January meeting, when we were all turning in our conflict of interest statements, there was a commissioner that made light of the conflict of interest statement and kind of joked about it and laughed, and I thought it was a little odd because it's a serious subject to me, a serious policy. And it just kind of gnawed at me for 2 months. I didn't make it to the last meeting because of other commitments. But I got to thinking about it, and the purpose of the conflict of interest policy is so that any commissioner, when faced with participating in the discussion and a vote on matters before the board that involve that commissioner personally, the commissioner's business, his family, or other businesses that he has financial interest in, that commissioner needs to recuse himself from the discussion and the vote and not participate. That way, we have remained above board in our actions, and no one can accuse us of under-the-table dealings. Right now, Mr. Talcott, your company has a contract with the airport authority. And during the discussions and acceptance of that contract, you recused yourself and sat away from the table, did not participate in the discussion or the vote. But since then, in every consent agenda, you have voted in the affirmative to, in effect, put money into your pocket by the airport authority paying your construction company for the work on the snow removal equipment building. So it would seem to me that if we are going to maintain above-board policies, that until the term of that contract is completed, you should recuse yourself from voting on paying yourself out of airport authority funds. I am not objecting to paying it. I'm just objecting to the manner in which this is being done.
I would make one note. In the current February billings that are on the agenda, there are no payments on the SRE building at all. So this month, there are none. In previous months, there may have been some. We did, back before when this contract was let, we did talk to Nick, the airport's attorney, and his guidance was, correct me if I'm wrong on this specifically, Laura, the initial contract approval is an issue where we definitely have to ensure that anyone is recused from having a portion of that contract. The subsequent payments are just contractual in nature. So Mick's guidance was we didn't have to do a recusal from the subsequent payments because we receive a recommendation from our engineer to pay them. They're verified and certified that they're correct. And the federal reporting that goes along with it is then scrutinized by the FAA. I don't think it's a bad policy, but I would note that this, we did cover these bases several months ago before that contract actually went into place. And in the current consent agenda, there aren't payments on that contract. Just factual information I'd interject in there.
And I would just, does anybody else have any other comments? Dick?
Well, just
Or
that,
Commissioner Swindle?
so he's specifically comfortable with that circumstance.
Yeah, we can provide that guidance to the board if you'd like to see it from Mick. Like I said, Jim had questioned, just back, I think it's clear back in, October or something, well before that, whenever we started on the contract payments, because the first contract payments all went to Dick Anderson, because they did all the grading and everything else. But Jim had asked for it many months ago, and so we did discuss it at that point and talked to Mick about it and got some guidance back from Mick.
I think it's a good question to have. I'm glad it's been addressed, and I'm comfortable with that explanation.
And I don't know what past practice is. JC, you might know better than I. I think at times Susan may have had some work up here Commissioner Hummel when she was on the board, and I don't know how the monthly payments were considered at that point.
Just as we're doing them now. But we could pull.
And it's easy enough.
And that's, I mean, that would be my comment is I certainly understand where JC's coming from. I mean, the process is set up so that,
Or we just need to remain, or appear that everything is done in a proper manner.
yeah, no, and just to finish my comments, I do not disagree at all. Have no problem with what you're saying, and to keep it, you know, the only thing would be maybe we should have brought it up in the very beginning, and then we wouldn't be, you know, hindsight's 20/20, but I have no problem going forward, and if you wanna somehow go back and separate the payments to date, I would have no problem with that, and then we can just keep it, so there's no question. I have no problem, and I would suggest pulling it from the consent agenda from here forward, and then there's no question if that would be what I would suggest.
We've never had anything less than a unanimous consent on that.
Right.
And so it probably is it's a non-issue in that way, but I think what JC's bringing up is just the emphasis on that independence, which I think that, well, I remember a little bit of joking about that, and personally, I not think it lessened our emphasis on, but I could see why you would feel that way. I kind of like a little humor. I know you do too. But anyway.
Any other comments?
I think that would be the case with any board member, you know, doing business. I think if it's something where they're receiving any type of funding from the airport, that they should not be voting on accepting that for that one specific item.
And that's easy enough to do. I mean, we can certainly call out those payments monthly for the remainder of the contract and ensure that they're just presented as a regular item on the agenda every month. I guess that would be okay, because it's not been, the reason I question that is because we wouldn't have it on 2 board meetings.
No, because it's still part of the consent agenda.
It's still part of the
We just
consent agenda, we just pull it out and vote on it.
It'll just be a separate line.
Separate line.
That will be voted on separately.
Okay.
Okay. Any other discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Is that to pass the maintenance and operating checks, just so I'm clear? Okay.
Yeah.
And I abstain.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you. That's something we probably should have taken care of a few meetings ago. Director's report.
Yeah, so we're off to a good start through 2 months. It's been the busiest year to date in January and February for passenger traffic. Traffic's up about 6%. We're doing a little bit better than the state average, about 1% better than the state average thus far to date. Interestingly, most of the growth in the state is at the very small airports, the ESA markets, Butte, Havre, those types of markets. Most of the larger airports are actually lagging the average for the state, which I found kind of interesting, at least based on the last state report we got. So I don't know what attribute that to. Seems like Butte's doing quite well, and a few of the other small markets are too, which of course we're happy for them, but just an interesting phenomenon. The other, looking ahead for the next couple of months, we expect the first through the third quarter to be very strong passenger-wise. We have some additional Allegiant flights in March, so we expect March to do quite well, although last March was very strong also. And then once we get into the summer months, we have some additional flights. LA flights begin on June 6th from Allegiant, and they'll run through the summer into early September. And then also Frontier starts in late May, and they'll run into mid-August. So we'll get some additional seats out there for the next few months. We expect to be up through the first 3 quarters of the year anyway. We haven't got visibility to the last quarter yet in terms of airline schedules. Typically that starts to come out towards the latter part of the first quarter, or the second quarter. So we'll begin seeing some of the fall schedules. I know Allegiant's got some additional flights in September, but overall we expect it to be a very good year. Master plan, we did have a kickoff meeting with the FAA during the last month to begin discussions on the master plan. And again, we completed the runway portion of the master plan several years ago with the airport optimization study. It was actually completed, the study itself was completed in 2012. It was not adopted until 2013. But the FAA guidance now allows you to break the master plan into geographical areas, which we chose to do because we knew we needed to get some funding for the crosswind runways. And that whole discussion of the last master plan had selected 725 as the crosswind runway to receive the federal support, and then eventually closing 1634. In the optimization study, we actually reversed that and said we want to keep 1634 rather than 725. And so that study was adopted last year. The new master plan will focus primarily on the terminal, roadway, and